Welcome into another Red Out podcast. We're a day early. A lot of life events happening for me, so I got to come in a little bit early here because I wanted to talk about the Conference USA game we played last week. We're going to obviously talking football. We're talking guys leaving, guys coming back. We're going to be talking basketball and other news. So hang in.
Hey, how about them cops, son?
All day, SEC boys. SEC, they supposed to be SEC. Crazy all day, baby.
You're listening to the Red Out Podcast.
Sorry about that. It was a little loud on you guys. I forgot to turn my volume down when the little one was upstairs with me. Sadly, we have no fade. Hey, Ross, how are you, buddy?
Good, Devin. How's it going, man? Long time.
I know, right? Life happens sometimes, right?
It does happen. I think the last time I got on here was when the last time we lost a championship game this year. So
I know, right? So, are you just the bearer of bad news? Is that what we got?
either bear bad news or just somebody who wants to vent. And I guess it just worked out this week.
That's right. That's right. So, like I said in the intro, had a lot of life events happen. Basically, since I work at a family business, my mother-in-law asked if I would switch days because she had an appointment, and I agreed to help her out. So, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So
How's everything going, man? It's been a while.
It has.
How's
Yeah.
life?
Yeah, it's life. Well, speaking of, I guess we normally do winners and losers, so I guess I'll start off as a loser this week. So I blame the tops. It's just bad karma. But so Saturday, the wife had to go into work. We had a family coming in, and so I was on baby duty, literally watching the kid. So I was like, "Well, I'm going to take a shower real quick." Let her watch her iPad, my iPad, her new iPad, and just see how it goes. And so I'm getting out of the shower, brushing my teeth, shaving, combing my hair. I'm like, all right, I got half of my face to shave, and I catch a whiff, and I'm like, something smells like baby dew. And I'm like, she's probably gone to the bathroom. I'm like, I literally have half of my face to shave. As soon as I'm done, I will take care of it. Before I can finish shaving that half of my face, somebody decides to start using her diaper as a palette, and she is finger painting.
Oh, no.
The iPad, yes. And of course, I see it, and I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Before I can grab her paintbrush finger, she has made a baseball anti-glare mark under her eye. I'm like, oh, Jesus. I'm thinking, what am I going to do to get all this off this kid?
She's 2 right now, or how old is she right now?
She's almost 2. She'll be 2 in January.
Yeah, you're in that border range where you can't really tell. Yeah, dear Lord.
Yeah, so literally, I just grab her by both wrists and stick her hands under the sink and start washing.
Yeah.
And then I mean, obviously, I had to change the diaper and all that stuff too. But it was just like, oh my gosh, are you serious right now? Well, then the karma continues. I go out and into the kitchen from the bedroom with the kid, and the dogs had gotten into the trash.
Oh,
I've got 2 older dogs. They are 12, 13-ish, 14. I don't remember. They're old. But they are old enough that they shouldn't be getting into stuff. And they got into
took advantage while you were distracted.
Exactly. They knew what they were doing. And so, yeah, I had back-to-back karma, and I completely blamed that game. But I will say, I did watch it to the end, as bad as it looked at the beginning. So speaking of, do you have any winners or losers before we start talking football?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say with the college football playoff, I would say, the G5, man, Cincinnati breaking through and, finally getting some new blood in the playoff. I know we still have Alabama and Georgia's been there once, but, not having the same old Clemson, Ohio State, a lot of the same teams in, like getting Cincinnati in, getting one of the little guys in, even though they're going to be moving to the Big 12. It's just cool to see some new blood in the playoff on a national level and, have something different to watch when it comes to the Final Four this year.
So I don't know if you've been listening to us or not, but Jared and I and the rest of the guys, Matt and Alex, agree. Are you tired of Alabama as much as the rest of us? Like
Yeah,
seeing them in the playoffs.
definitely. And I've got one of my best friends who's a big Bama fan, and
Now is he a Bama fan or is he a bandwagon Bama fan?
no, he went. Remember when we first were friends, they lost to Louisiana Monroe, and he was a Bama fan. I think he has been all of his life, but I mean, even if you were raised an Alabama fan during the '90s when it was light, they still won a title that decade, and
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I'm not saying they're not good, but
No,
like, does he
no,
cheer
he's the
for
kind of
Alabama?
guys who cares more about losing like the pick six. He
Yeah,
cares. He feels worse about that than how many damn national titles they've won. They're just he's insane, but uh, you know, yeah, I am sick of them. I mean, I thought this was the year they would, I thought this was the inevitable rebuilding year. And then Saban once again shows why he's, probably the best coach of all time. He just put on a clinic with, switching up offensive linemen, Bryce Young just, tearing apart the formerly unstoppable Georgia defense. And, I still think they could lose in the playoff, but I mean,
I
there's
definitely think they could too.
I
Really,
think
really
this is
could.
probably the most wide open one we've had in a few years too. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, I'm sick of Alabama. I guess we until Saban retires, we really can't expect them to go more than a year or two at tops without being in. And as good as that team was last year, the fact that they can come back and just replug, it's like, oh, their starter receiver tears a knee. Oh no, they got poor little Alabama has to replace them with another 5-star. What will they do?
yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too is Alabama. To at this point, their legacy. I mean, they've they can easily walk into a place and get kids to come in and yada yada yada.
No,
But
they got the pick of the litter. Like,
yes,
yeah.
definitely, definitely,
So
definitely agree. Um, but yeah, my favorite quote is Lane Kiffin talking about Saban. If a game is decided by a coin flip, he's going to have an hour and a half meeting about it, and he's going to know everything about it. And I mean, he's good. I mean, as bad as I am, it's like it was like last year when everybody was kind of overwhelmed with COVID. It's almost to that point for me with Alabama. It's just like I don't even care. But I digress. We're going to talk. First off, Friday night we played UTSA in the Alamo Dome. A beautiful 80 degrees in the Alamo Dome, supposedly.
I was there.
You were there, okay.
Yeah.
Was it wild?
It was a really good atmosphere. I was pretty impressed by I liked San Antonio. That was the second time I've been there, but the first time I'd really experienced San Antonio. And yeah, the atmosphere was good. The Alamo Dome was cool. UTSA for only having a real 10-year-old program has a good following, which I know we said in our little group chats. A lot easier to get bandwagon and grow a following when you have 2.5 million people to draw from, as opposed to Western's fan base or fan potential. But I was impressed. It's kind of sad that Conference USA is disintegrating right when we're getting some programs on track, and we're stuck with the scraps because it'd be fun to play them for the next few years. So
Yeah, I agree. The population census in 2020 for Warren County, which is where Bowling Green is, was 134,554. And I'm going to say they're all blue. But anyway, yeah, a wild thing for me, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but they told it during the telecast that UTSA, with the Conference USA rules, the conference championship game, the students are not allowed to get in for free. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so the San Antonio businesses actually did a fundraiser and raised enough money to allow any of the students that wanted to come to the game to come.
And they did a good job because that place was loud. I brought my kids to the game, my 4 and 2-year-old, and you could tell there was a couple times where they were a little razzled by the sound. So,
Yeah,
I mean, and you can tell Western in general, whether it be the center or just some of the timing issues with our offense, like there were just times where the sound there, and it was 41,000 of a 65,000 seat, but that whole lower bowl was packed, and it was just as loud as Michigan State that I went to earlier this year, if not more, just because of the acoustics in there.
Yeah, 41,148. They said it was full, which
That's not full, but I mean it was their third largest crowd of all time. I think the only times they'd beaten it that I read was their opening game 10 years ago, where they sold out the whole thing, which is 68,000 or something like that.
wow.
And then
See, I'm
when
just
they
going off
played,
ESPN, so
yeah, and then when they played Baylor, I think a few years ago, they had like 1,000 more people. So
there is now. This is ESPN's little thing here at the bottom of
yeah,
their GameCast report, whatever. Attendance, a capacity, it says, is 36,582. Capacity or attendance
that's
for the
totally
game.
right.
Yeah, attendance for the game was 41,148, and it says they were at 100%. Which, by the way, if this picture is from the game, there is like a bunch up in the rafters that are empty.
Well,
But
so the end zones, they put the top end zones, they put like the curtain on to
yeah,
kind of block it off, and then like behind on the sideline on TV had upper deck seats, but the opposite side where we were at did not have people in the seats. So, like I said, the attendance I think is 64 capacity according to Wikipedia. I mean, it was a damn good crowd. I mean, like I said, the university's only had football for 10 years. They've got a mix. The Austin is about an hour and a half away, so and A&M's probably a couple hours away too. So they've got their good mix of those P5 fans, that SEC fans that follow them. But I think as a alternative, kind of like UAB is in Birmingham or whatever, UTSA is like the good for like transplants, military people, and then just locals who don't have that team to follow, and it's just a big market when all you really have is the Spurs besides that. So
yeah. I mean, completely agree. Now, I will say that was a rough game to watch. To
ugh.
be forced into in the first half to only get one touchdown and two field goals, which, by the way, if just hypothetically speaking here, we get a touchdown. They got two touchdowns in the first and two touchdowns in the second. If we had gotten touchdowns on both of those, we'd been within 7 points.
I mean, it was just
And
so many
then
mistakes. And the funny thing is, I'm sure you guys have been talking about it all year. What was our biggest bugaboo all season? We started off slow. We dug holes. This game, we didn't dig a hole, like at least early. I mean, we scored a touchdown on the opening drive. They came back and scored on us, but then we should have, I think, was it Corley who dropped the touchdown pass, and then we kicked that field goal. So it was 10-7, and it
yeah,
looked like we were just going to keep trading scores. But then we stalled out. I'm pull up the drive chart so I'm not misremembering exactly.
no, but you're right so far. I think Corley was the drop, but um,
I mean, that's when like I think that got us a little shook, and
yeah,
then our defense reverted back to that early season form where Harris is the kind of mix of elusive quarterback who can do some stuff with his legs, make you miss, and
he's a really good quarterback.
I mean, yeah,
Harris is good.
we
I
missed.
was
Who we missed really? We missed Will Ignont, the Tennessee transfer to linebacker who's kind of coming on.
yeah.
I think he hurt us without contain and stopping McCormick, their running back, and that kind of opened up everything with them. And then we kind of didn't play. If you think about when during that 7-game winning streak, our defense played well by getting to the passer and forcing turnovers. We only had 1 sack on the day and no turnovers, and still lost only by 8. Just
And honestly, like up until like when we got the ball with a minute, 30 something to go, I thought, this is a possibility. We could be going into overtime. I mean, it was a stretch. Don't get me wrong. I knew it wasn't a good chance, but it was a possibility that we could go and be going into overtime with this.
yeah.
But you know, I mean, I commend the guys. It was a really good push for that. For the second half to come out and be down 42-13, and then
That's
pull
yeah.
it within, pull it within 8.
Those
Honestly,
turnovers were just just killers, man. That just
yeah,
if you get rid of one, let alone both, we win the game walking away. I mean, maybe not. Maybe UTSA got comfortable, and that's what got us back in the game. But you look at it like Stearns, he's been an All-American receiver this year. He hasn't really done a whole lot on punt returns, but I think that was the first muff punt in the season.
yes,
The worst possible. The defense gets back-to-back stops. Finally, they get one before the end of the half. And then obviously we kicked that long field goal that we missed, but and then we get another stop out of the locker room just to muff that, and when they're inside the 10 and they score easy, then Zappy comes back and he presses, throws a pick. So that's 2 easy scores we give them right after that, and it's just like that hole seemed insurmountable, and somehow we still almost came back.
yeah.
Just
I mean,
nuts.
we had every opportunity, and the funny thing for me is just hypothetical, like I was talking earlier. If we had scored those 2 touchdowns instead of field goals, we would win into overtime.
Oh,
Okay.
easy.
So we scored 3 in the first. They only scored 3 touchdowns in the second half. They scored 4 TDs in the first. We scored 4 TDs in the second half. We would have been in overtime, and that would have been wild. But it's like you said. I mean, honestly, like in total yards, Western was at 568 and UTSA was 556. The
Oh, I
difference
mean, I
is
saw
we
a
had
lot of
3
people
turnovers.
posting the fact. Here's the other thing. I got to give UTSA a lot of credit. Had you
Yeah.
seen Zappy been pressured like that all season long? Whether it be I think he took 3 or 4 sacks. Um, I think that. Uh, I think that obviously the I'm not counting the Hail Mary interception at the end, but that
Yeah.
interception that put us in the giant hole. And there was just a couple times where, we put ourselves behind the 8 ball, and it was because UTSA finally got to our quarterback and hadn't seen that all season long. There was some drops. I mean, how frustrating in the first half was the fact that when we got to the 1 yard line, and then was it a bad snap or whatever happened, and then we get sacked,
Yeah.
and that's when we had to settle for the field goal. It's like 1st and 1 at the 1 yard line. It's inexcusable not to get a touchdown in a situation like that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
there were just so
That
many.
happened twice, didn't it? Am I right? That we had
Well, the
2
second the
missed
second
snaps?
time they scored anyway, but
Yeah, but
they scored a
still.
touchdown anyway. But yeah, I mean it's just frustrating, man. It's just I think I know you don't really talk a lot of S&P plus on here, the advanced computer metrics, but Bill Connolly does a post game win expectancy based on your stats and how how efficient you are with your plays. They said at the end of the game, UTSA only was expected. This is based on the average, average likelihood you would compared to the mean. They would only win that game 36% of the time. So it's just like,
Wow.
yeah, Western just had bad luck. Just some terrible, timing on some mistakes. And, so they're just like, I think if that game was played, I think both games against them, if they were played 10 times, let's say out of 10 times we play them, I still think we probably win 6 out of 10. But they got us 2 out of those 10, the 2 times we play them. It just
Yeah.
crazy luck, man.
And I attribute that to Harris because he's a good player, and Sincere McCormick, he's a good running back too. I mean, I've got to tip my hat to them. And I mean, even UTSA's defense, they made us a one dimensional offense. We threw for 577 yards,
Well,
but we had
I
-9
mean,
rushing.
yeah, I mean, I think the -9 was because of sacks, but
Well, I'm sure that doesn't help
well,
when
no, and
you have
when you're down 42 to was it 42-13? Is that what we were
yeah
down?
yeah
Uh,
yeah yeah.
you can't run the ball. You've got to, that's how you get back in the game. So
Well, I mean, you yes and no. I mean, I still think you got to run it a little bit, but Whittington had 15 yards on 4 carries. So
yeah,
that tells me that their front three or four, or how many ever they were rushing, was doing what they should do. And of course, like you said, Bailey Zapp had those two over the head snaps, a couple sacks or whatever, and that's going to screw up your numbers too.
oh yeah,
Like,
definitely.
let's see if I can find him in rushing. Yeah, he actually had positive yards somehow.
Well,
He ended up
I
with
don't think
5.
sack yardage technically count. It counts against your negative total, but it doesn't count as an individual. If that makes any sense.
Okay. Well, the team quote team
That's
rushing was -35, which threw us into the negative.
So yeah, and
Um,
that's stuff we hadn't really seen all season. If you want
yeah,
just for a reference, the first time we played them in the Houch, we rushed 29 yards for
yeah,
147 yards. So that was a big difference, and
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
you attribute that directly to playing from behind, and um, that's kind of I got some crap a little bit on like when we lost the first time. We started 1-4, and I was like, I think we had a good season, but our chances special season was kind of ruined because even if we would have won a 10 and or a 9-3 season isn't as special as an 11. And what UTSA did, they just had a special season, 12-1,
Yeah.
and
Which, by the
which
way, so glad it's got that little blemish. I'm so happy for the blemish.
well, here's another underrated. Well, we lost home field advantage in that game, which
Yes.
that's something that you can't forget. I mean, if Zappy gets it in, if that phantom clipping call doesn't happen, or if Zappy finds a way to get us in the end zone, we're playing that game, in the house, probably in front of 12,000 people, where the sound doesn't matter. But uh, I honestly
Yeah.
do think that North Texas's loss to, or their UTSA's loss to North Texas the week before, kind of refocused them too.
I do too. I think, and I actually said it on the podcast. I think that UTSA, when they lost, I said they're going to come at us hard. They're going to be pissed. Speaking
If you,
frankly,
you listen to their coaches' comments after the game, they said the same thing.
um, now I do have to admit something because I could have sworn this. Like, if you'd have asked me, I thought Jareth Stern's name was Jared.
The whole time?
I did. I thought his name was Jared Stearns. And honestly, like the announcers
This
did
deep
not
into
help
the
that.
season?
Do what?
This deep into the season?
Yes, I swear. I thought it was Jared. I was like, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I look at the stats and I'm like, that says Jareth. But every time they would call his name, they're like, oh, 60-yard catch by Jared Stearns or Jareth Stearns. I'm like, that sounds like Jared to me. But anyway, so yeah, that's just me, guys.
Well, he
You'll get
got.
used to it.
I don't know if
And
you guys talked about this a couple weeks ago, but him, Zappy, and everybody else. We get past this game, just getting passed over as finalists for all these awards, despite these crazy stats. And I think Stearns is the fact that he couldn't even make the top three despite holding all the category leads is pretty ridiculous to me. And he had a hell of a game minus the muff punt. I mean, some of these go routes that we had against UTSA were just beautiful. Just
yeah,
Zappy's timing was great, and I still think if Corley doesn't drop that one, then it's a little bit of a different game too, because then the pressure is on to keep scoring. And instead, we fell behind, and I think that kind of took off our edge a little bit for a little bit of the game too. So
yeah, I do too. Of course, as most of you probably know, Western lost to UTSA 49-41, so that was 8-point loss. But I do have some positives to take away from this, and I hope that this can happen with I swear ESPN's little videos that keep popping up on my stats. I'm going to kick some butt. But like you're talking about guys getting passed over for awards and this, that, and the other. Bailey Zapp actually has a chance to break Joe Burrow's record.
yeah, he needs
He needs
5.
5 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a good segue into who we play in the bowl game.
Yes. So we are going to be playing App State, Appalachian State, Mountaineers, which they're in West Virginia, right?
No, they're in North Carolina in Boone.
Okay. I knew it
They're
was long.
probably like an hour outside of Asheville.
Okay. So they are first in conference or in Sun Belt. Sorry, they're first in the Sun Belt. Obviously,
No,
we got
they're the
second.
runner-up in the Sun Belt.
They lost.
They lost to Louisiana Lafayette in the Sun Belt.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry. ESPN's giving me wrong information. So
Now they're an hour
I'll
and
blame it on them.
48 minutes from Asheville. So they're in the mountain. They're in the mountains of North Carolina, kind of. Let's see, in the middle of nowhere. So
So the spread is actually going to App State. They're a 2.5-point favorite, which is interesting to me.
well, they were 10-2, 10-3 after the loss.
Yes.
They did beat Marshall. Not as bad
Yes.
as beat Marshall. They lost to Miami by a point, right? And then I think they lost to they lost to Louisiana Lafayette 2 other times. So they've got a really good defense. Honestly, in the conference realignment drama and all that crap. Some people were looking at the Sun Belt as a step back, but getting to play a great program like App State every year would have been cool. They're from a fan support standard and just a success standard since they moved up, which was right around the time we left the Sun Belt. They have been dominant. I think they finished first or second pretty much every season. Just stacked 10-win seasons. Done under 3 coaches, and they're probably one of the better mid-major programs. So, I said on Twitter the other day, like, you look at kind of our opponents for bowl games. I think this is the best we've ever faced since we've been to FBS in the bowl game. So it's going to be a big test, and especially with some of the news that came out this week with the coaching staff.
Yeah. And of course, talking about App State and how they're going to do, I think it's going to be a tough game. And like you said, the Sun Belt's definitely a tough conference. It's tougher than it was when we were there, and it's going to be tougher in the next couple of years with the additions of those teams leaving.
Or the addition of Marshall. I don't know about ODU is okay this year, and Southern Miss is a Southern Miss right now.
ODU's ODU, yeah.
Well, they made a bowl at least. They
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, apparently MTSU did too. So somehow, that was amazing.
Those were actually those 2 in Marshall were actually our best wins this year. It just when it came to playing good teams, we played them damn close, but we always shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah. Of course, we're averaging 528 yards. They're averaging about 428 yards of total offense. And we allow about 422 total yards on our defense, and they allow about 325. So their defense is a lot better than ours.
Strength versus strength, and strength, weakness versus weakness, I think, a little bit. I mean, App State's offense is okay, but their quarterback is, when he gets pressured, when he has to throw the ball and stuff, he is not that good. Used to be at Duke, used to be a third stringer at Clemson, but he's Chase Bryce is bound to throw some picks. But if they can get the running game like UTSA did against us going, it could be a tough day. And their defense can definitely throw a wrench. I think it could be kind of like the Marshall game where we start off slow and have to kind of find our way. And with the fact that we could, who knows right now, we have no idea who's going to be still coaching in the bowl game. We've got to worry about that too. So if you want
Yeah,
to
that's
that news.
well, and I guess we could segue into that a little bit with the news that Kitley is going to be going to what was it?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
And so
Yeah.
is offensive line coach Stephen Hamby.
Yes.
And then co-offensive coordinator Brian Ellis is going to Georgia State.
Yes.
So what do you think of those, Devin?
I tell you, I hate it that Kitley is leaving. Okay, so my thought, I'll just throw this out here. I have always said that they should not start their new jobs until they complete the bowl game. If you don't go to a bowl, it doesn't matter. But if you go to a bowl, the coaches you should have to go to the bowl. I mean, I'm sorry. You can go get that bowl again.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think two things that have sped the whole process up from even when you were, a trainer on the team is the fact that the early signing periods happen. So coaches
Yes.
coaches get fired earlier, and then they wait till after the championship game to fill their staffs. I think the good thing, I think we might get one of the coaches or two of the coaches with the fact that our bowl game is a lot earlier than like some of the big like New Year's Six bowls. So like, okay, like Kitley just has to do double duty for like a week and a half, and then he can go join Texas Tech or whatever.
Exactly.
The hope is that Kitley wants to be there for Zappy and Stearns and those guys he brought over, and he uses that to help them help Zappy break those records that we talked about. He just needs, like you said,
He's got four
touchdowns to tie,
4 to tie, and 5 to win.
5 to win, and one less game than Joe Burrow. And then I think he needs like 230 or 200 something yards to pass Cumbie as the all-time single season record. So the former Texas Tech quarterback, which is kind of weird in its own way. So, my thoughts on Kitley. I mean, I knew when we were performing at the level that we were performing, he was probably gone. I said on our group text, that especially when the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech got hired to be Louisiana Tech's head coach, I thought that was it's a no-brainer. And, I think it was a real coup by Helton to bring in Kitley. The fact that we got him for a year, we got Zapp, we got Stearns, was a big deal. I'm worried about the flip side of that, but can't argue with the success. He took an offense that couldn't break 19 points a game, and now we averaged in the 40s, and just an unqualified success. I think some bad luck, some bad defense, and maybe a little bit of questionable decisions in game might have cost us from having that great season, but it was a damn good season, and it's definitely one we'll remember for all time. Ellis, I think that rumor for him going to Georgia Southern was on the wall for a while. He got demoted, for Kitley, and I think he wasn't really that great of a play caller when he was in charge of it. So, I mean, I think he did a good amount of time here. He helped the program. I mean, we'll never forget the bowl game he called against Memphis, but I think it was probably a mutual thing. He's going to coach for Helton's brother at Georgia Southern. So I think that was just like, okay, well, it's time for everybody to move on, and it's going to be really crucial to see who Helton gets to replace those. I think we're all hoping that he kind of sticks with a similar air raid type offense because it's so successful. And then
or at least he coaches several teams and the coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I don't really know. I don't really think poaching, FCS all the time is the best way to go. I think Zappy was a special case. I mean, everybody all year was like, we reported the whole offense, and really, Kitley, Zappy, and Stearns were great. Little Stearns and Ratzlaff were just kind of, support players that didn't, were kind of interchangeable. So I think, you take the right players, and if it's got to be a package deal, whatever. But find something to work. And then we've also got to worry about, you know, living by the portal, dying by the portal. And I think, you know, the news with Mitchell Tinsley entering the portal today, even though he's going to play in the bowl game, has got to be worrisome that, you know, maybe this is that modern college football thing where, yeah, it was great to have these guys for a year, but now you hire these talented coaches that are going to take your players with you. And there's, you know, we've got one that, you know, Tinsley wasn't somebody that Kitley brought in, but he's taking him with him. You know, we got him from JUCO, and you know, he would be gone anyway after this year if it wasn't for that free COVID year. But you know, I'm worried about, you know, like a Malachi Corley, some of these good offensive linemen. And, you know, we just got to hope that, you know, we can retain some of these talented players that don't put us even more behind the eight ball. And that, you know, I think that's always been kind of the thing that's made Western rise over the past, you know, 12 years is the fact that, you know, we didn't lose the Tyler Higbees and the Forrest Lamps and the Brandon Dowdies to the transfer portal. We kept them on the hill, and I don't know if it's the modern transfer portal era or whatever, but we've got to find a way to keep these guys if we can.
Yeah, I mean, and it was brought up in our group chat. You know, if those guys were in this situation, would they transfer? And some of them, I think, would. I really do.
I mean, you would know, you were on the teams with, at least with, you know, the end of your tenure. So,
well, I mean, Bobby was there for a number of years when I was there. I can't. I'll have to look to see when he started at Western. But you know, Bobby was he was a great player at Western, and I think he would have done great in the. I mean, he did do decent in the pros. Pretty sure he got
yeah,
a
I mean, if
ring.
he could play in the pro, I mean, he's kind of small, but he could have definitely played in a P5 school. And it's just, you got to hope it's not completely going to just full like minor league system. And I guess we took advantage of it getting those HBU players, but I just hope it's not a complete, like, you know, we eat off them, they eat off us. And you want some of that continuity. You want some of those 4-year players. And, you know, it's just, it's mixed emotions. I totally agree. We've taken advantage of it, but we've also done, underrated aspect is we've done a good job of minimizing that. And you look at the UTSA team that just beat us, a lot of their guys were homegrown guys that they developed and kept. And, you know, I think it was a good strategy for us this year. It's just I guess we got to find a way to navigate that middle ground. So,
Yeah, but like you said earlier, they do have they've got a bigger crop to pull people from too. So that does help them as far as that goes. And with that bigger market, you know, they've got it. It's easier for them to retain those players. A little windy there, huh?
well,
Anyway,
speaking of windy, did you see that Monday Night Football game last night?
oh my gosh, 55 was it 55-mile-an-hour winds?
I
And it
mean,
was
what
going
did the
from
Patriots completed 2 passes?
which, by the way, that's a miracle on its own.
Well, they you know, the joke on Twitter was, I thought Army Navy was on Saturday.
Hey, that's right. Hey, that's really good. But I mean, like, even the most wind I've ever seen was we were playing. It was a practice. We were, you know, starting to storm. Coach calls for field goal to win, which was the last thing we did. And basically, you know, the guy hits it. You know, you don't do conditioning or whatever that day. Um, so goes over. They go to kick it, and I kid you not, this guy kicks the field goal, and it literally curved back. Like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. Of course, it was like I said, like minutes from starting to storm, and like the certified trainers are like, "Get off the field," and the coaches are like, "5 more minutes," and it's like, "No, get off the field now." um, but yeah, that was that. But that 55-mile-an-hour winds, that's just crazy. Like, I can't even imagine. Could not imagine trying to play in that. Um, you ever have those moments where you just go blank? But anyway, talking about transfers. So Jareth Stearns, is he another one that's going to be leaving?
No, they announced. Well, he's going to be leaving, but he is going to play in the. Was it
The senior junior East West
the
game?
East West Shrine game? So I think him and Zappy are going to the NFL draft.
I think
Zappy
Zappy
Zappy.
definitely should.
Well, yeah, they both should because their stock's not. Even if they went to Texas Tech, their stock's not going to be higher.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
um, you know, you risk being like Jacquor Pearson, who could have probably put up huge numbers. Instead, was a like the number 5 receiver at Ole Miss. But anyway, uh, I think Zappy, technically could have, since he only played 4 games last year, technically might have had a year left. But I've seen him, potentially 3rd, 4th round pick as the tops if he does well at the Senior Bowl. And then I think Stearns is probably kind of similar boat where like he might get on as a slot receiver in the 4th or 5th round. And I think, considering their backgrounds and their age, I think that's kind of perfect for them to kind of do that. So, we've got some guys to replace, and like I said, we've got to hold on to some of these other guys, these supporting pieces in the portal. I mean, Tinsley down the stretch was arguably better than Stearns, just from the Stearns is more of a volume guy. Tinsley's was the big play guy that could beat people deep more often and a little bit bigger. So luckily he's playing in the bowl game, but just a big loss, and we'll be interested if he follows Kitley and Hamby to Texas Tech. So,
But like, I completely agree. The thing with Stearns though, Stearns and Tinsley, they were able to play off of each other because it was kind of one of those things that, hey, the safety's going to Stearns, hey, Tinsley's got it deep, or
yeah,
vice versa.
you
Tinsley's
could
got it,
tell
go
after
to Stearns.
Stearns had that run in the midseason, teams were kind of doubling and focusing on him, and that's when Tinsley really took off. And then
Exactly what I'm saying. Yeah,
yeah, and then
definitely.
you got like the Dawood Davises and the Malachi Corleys of the world that also did a great job. I mean, I think they both finished around 700 yards receiving. So like, you had 1,200-yard receivers, one of those being a 1,600-yard receiver in Stearns, and then you had Corley and Davis, who were just great complement pieces as well. So tons of weapons back next year potentially if we can hang on to them.
Yes, and if we poach some good teams, will be great. So the game, the Boca Raton, it is the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. Jesus, who do they give bowls to these days? That game is on December 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern. That is on a Saturday. It is going to be at the FAU Stadium. Speaking of FAU, did they get a bowl this year or no?
No, they choked down the stretch. I think they lost their last 4. Willie is really kind of
Reeling?
reeling. I mean, between Florida State and there's we always knew he was a good recruiter, but I mean, you can kind of go back to his last season at Western. His actual game coaching lacks a lot, and I think it's kind of coming to a head. He's got a big show me year next year. If he has a losing season, he might be done as a head coach for a while, if not forever. So
Well, let me see. How old is Willie? Willie Taggart
he's only like
is.
44 or something.
Is he 44? I thought he was older.
He was only like 32, or he's 45 now.
He's
But
45, yes.
so let's
But
see. He was
man, like, I'll say
30 when he
that
was
Florida State job aged him, though.
Oh God, yeah.
Which, by the way, that Florida State job, which, I mean, it was probably ideal and probably like his dream job. But like that job, like, that's like coaching basketball at Kentucky. Like, you don't want
Well, I
that job.
mean,
You don't want that job.
well, that and Jimbo basically just gave up his last couple years before he bolted for A&M. So you left him
Like
about
Petrino.
yeah, kind of. Well, not like Petrino at Western, probably like Petrino at Louisville.
That's what I meant. Petrino
Yeah,
at Louisville, you know. Yeah,
but
Petrino at Louisville, they said he didn't even go to meetings and like that
he
was one of
wouldn't
those.
even
He was
talk
like,
to the players, and yeah. I mean, so and you look at Florida State this year, they lost to Jacksonville State, and they missed a bowl game going 5-7. So apparently their program's in financial shambles, and the rumor is they might hire U of L's athletic director to just fix their financial mess. So who knows?
Oh yeah, that was something else I meant to mention. Like the Louisville news media is just going wild with that right now.
I mean, it's just as I would call myself a lapsed Louisville fan now. I've gone even probably when we first started going on this podcast, Devin. I was still a decent U of L fan. Now I'm probably just kind of a extreme casual U of L fan, just because it's just too much drama. I mean, their fan base has been ripped in half. It's just, I mean, it's crazy how far that's fallen in 6 or 7 years, man. It's
It
nuts.
really is. I mean, as somebody who's sitting across the street watching the dumpster fire, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and I mean,
Even with if Chris Mack and trying to fix that whole situation,
they still have the NCAA ruling hanging over their head and that, and it's just I don't think
which
I think the thrill's gone, man. I think like
yeah,
it's gonna take like a couple decades of winning and just no drama there, and you've got stuff like that soccer team here in Louisville that's starting to take off, and that's taking some people's attention away. It's just I think they're going to have to win big to get a lot of people back. There's just a lot of people that have gotten apathetic and gotten sick of it, and I being one of those people, I don't blame them at all. So
I'm right there with you. Like I was I was very indifferent when Louisville won the national title in 13 ish. I mean,
well, you were
like
raised a UK fan, so you can
I
be
was, I
honest.
was, I was. But going to Western and all that, it's kind of one of those. I just, I really didn't care, honestly.
Yeah.
And then when it got taken away and all that, and people are, L1C4 and this, and you're just like, all right, people. And by the way, I do have a gentleman's bet with cousin Jake, the one of the founding members of Red Out. That
How's he doing? He fell off the face of the earth.
yes, well, he's doing good. He's got a kid.
We need a reunion
And
show one of these days.
do what
I said we need a reunion show one of
we
these days.
do, we do. Um,
I'd love to hear his takes on everything again.
Oh my gosh. Um, like I told you all, I got you all in the divorce, and he got the kids. So, uh, no, he's uh, anytime he wants to come on, he can come on. He's more than welcome to. We have talked in the past about things, but we just haven't gotten into uh, about as far as doing the podcast. He's always had something else going on, and having a kid kind of it kind of limits you with what you can
Oh
and
yeah,
can't.
I mean, yeah,
So,
the reason I haven't been on the podcast, even though I stopped writing, I still try to help behind the scenes with the tower rack, but yeah, it definitely takes it out of you and everything else. And we, all season we were like, hey Devin, let's make it work schedule, and this was finally the first time where we made it work schedule wise. So I totally understand. So
oh yeah, I am. I was just glad to get you on for that. For definitely for this, and of course, coming into basketball season, we might be able to do something else. But speaking of basketball, Western has had a few games. We played. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out who the last one was. Okay, yeah, we played EKU the other night. That was the last game we
I
played.
watched that game, so I can give you a little analysis on that.
Good. So, what did you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys talked about the roads just pantsing last week.
Yeah, that was no. We honestly, I mentioned the score, and that was it because it was like that wasn't even really worth being on the
It was
schedule,
kind of
much
cool to
less.
see they got the biggest margin of victory ever. But yeah, that was I don't understand. I think one of those games they thought it made sense at the time, and it was completely worthless. But with the Eastern game, Josh Anderson was out with COVID still, and let's hope we have him back Wednesday against Buffalo. But then we find out literally 10 minutes before the game that Jarius Hamilton is out with a bad back. So Western was down to really 7 players that actually played in the game. So, and Eastern is not a bad team. I mean, they're not, the Eastern that we kind of grew up with. They've got a good coach now. They're probably going to finish top 3 in their league, and they just play a big up tempo style that shoot like crazy. They shot I'm looking at this correctly, let me pull up the box score. They shot so many damn threes, it was insane.
They shot 35% from three.
How many shots?
Um,
How
how
many
many
shots?
shots did they take?
Yeah.
Let me see here. 3 point, 3 point, 3 point. Okay. They threw up 51 and they hit 18.
51 3-pointers.
Yes, that's wild.
So they shot 51 of their 70 shots from deep. Luckily, they only hit, people, say whatever all the time, but 50, teams always go nuts from three from against Western, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that, they shot that many, we made them earn it. And, we kind of kept them, it was kind of back and forth. I think, Jamarian Sharp was a freaking beast again. I think he had he had the triple double against, was it Alabama A&M or one of those teams, but today 17 points on 7 field goals, 14 rebounds and 4 blocks. I mean, he completely took away the inside from Eastern. Just completely dominated. Sherman Brashear having to step up without Hamilton, and Anderson had 13.7 rebounds. McKnight, was pretty damn good too. 22 points, leading scorer. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and only 2 turnovers, and that's been a bugaboo. And then, Frampton's kind of found his shot too, 3 of 7 from deep. And then Cam Justice, where would this team be without Cam Justice, Devin?
Yeah, completely agree. They're doing great. I can't.
I mean,
I'm
it's just
amazed with Sharp though. Okay.
Well, I mean, we can go into the negatives. What the hell is Jalen Butts doing, man? He just takes up space. I mean, I think probably the fact that Stans leaned on him early this season is probably why he lost all 3 of those games in a row.
Yeah.
But, better late than never. And, we've got it. We're still waiting on those 2 transfers, and we got to hope we can get Hamilton and Anderson. I mean, if we really only play 7, and really let's be honest, Stansberry's son is nothing more than a dribble off the court and pass it player at this point. He's not going to make a shot. And then Butts is just kind of a liability at this moment. You were playing 5 players against Eastern, so
you're right.
Here's my opinion on where, the last 5 during this 5-game or this 4-game winning streak, we've kind of figured out who we are as a team a little bit. I think we know that, okay, we've got somebody special with Sharp. McKnight is a great point guard. Justice, our wily veteran. Frampton makes shots. Brashear can make some shots. Those guys are great. You get Anderson back, you get that defensive, springy athlete. He's never going to be a great scorer, but he does so many other things. And then Jarius Hamilton's another great, he's our leading scorer who can put it up. So I think with that, you got a solid 7. And then if we ever get Harmon his head out of his ass, and if the NCAA ever gives us Keith Williams back, then we might have a team. And this next 3 out of 4 games really can make our season preseason wise. I mean, our computer numbers are in the tank right now, but Buffalo is about 83 in the Ken Palm ratings. They're a preseason MAC favorite. You want a statement win that game tomorrow in Diddle. And then Saturday we got Ole Miss, another P5. They just beat Memphis. That's another statement win. They're not a great shooting team, which means we can have a good shot against them if the shots aren't falling. And after that center game, you got U of L. If you can win 2 to 3 against Buffalo, Ole Miss, and U of L, you could still have a technical outside shot at large bid just by the fact that we don't have any bad losses, and you'd have those good wins on your schedule. So there's still a lot this team could do, especially if we ever get those guys back. So
yeah, definitely got to get those guys back. And I agree with everything you're saying.
I mean, I'm going to be positive. I know the other guys are, kind of negative with Stans and kind of where the program's at. But since the South Carolina game, you've kind of got to be pleased with where this team is heading.
Yes.
We're playing well. We're beating the teams we're beating the teams that we're supposed to, and and that shorthanded win on Saturday was just, that was an impressive win. So now's the next big step: beat Buffalo at home. We're a 3-point dog, but we've got a shot. And then Ole Miss is just, it's kind of gravy. If we win, we win. If we lose, we're not supposed to beat them. So, I think, this is a good show me week. How far have we progressed since we played Memphis, since we played South Carolina? Are we gelling into the type of team that can really be a Conference USA contender or favorite, or are we going to be probably in that 3-7 range behind UAB and Louisiana Tech? I think this week will show us a lot on that.
So this is what kills me. The game, like Ross said, is tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. And like you said, Buffalo is a 3.5-point favorite. But the BPI, ESPN's Basketball Power Index, has Western at a 71% win percentage. Like, we should win 71%. They're predicting us to win 71%. That's wild to me. Like, what are they seeing that we're not besides our record?
I mean, I think probably if they might know something about some injuries, they might know that if you kind of delve into Buffalo's season, they lost to Michigan by 12, who's a top 10 team. They lost to pretty good Stephen F. Austin team. Let's see how good is Stephen F. Austin right now. 7-2 with wins over Middle Tennessee, South Dakota, some decent teams. Nobody great, but a 7-2 team. And then they just, who else did Buffalo lose to? They lost to St. Bonaventure, which is a ranked team as well, or was a ranked team. So, who's 7? Let's see, what's St. Bonaventure? 7-1 on the season, with their only loss to Northern Iowa. So, Buffalo's played some good teams. They're battle tested. They're a veteran team with, they played in the NIT like we did last year, and they've been to the tournament several times over the past few years. So, I think I remember when they scheduled this, Devin, that, it was two teams that couldn't get like the P5 teams to play them, in a home and away. So they just scheduled their own home and home. So,
hey, that works, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's, the perfect, non-conference opponent that, might not be the sexiest name, but if we ever made it in the MAC one day, it'd be one of those teams that would be fighting for the conference championship with. So,
please don't mention the MAC. That just makes me sad. But yeah, I think it's a definite possibility, especially I think Buffalo's probably our best chance. Yeah.
Best chance at a quality non-conference win.
Yeah.
Which, if we don't at least win one or two of these, this would probably be, minus not having any bad losses, the fact that we haven't beaten any good non-conference opponents since Stansbury's first year. So it's a big game, and get a little bit more into Buffalo's stats. What do we always complain about is our 3-point defense. Let's see what they're shooting from 3 on the season. 62 for 176. Let me see if we can have the team stats. I can see the player stats, but I want some team stats.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so I think we definitely have a possibility to beat Buffalo. And I think Ole Miss is going to be a tough game for us, especially since it's in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's in that holiday thing on 7:30 on Saturday. So we'll get to
7:30 Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
But they're not a good 3-point shooting team, and if teams don't shoot lights out again at 3, we have a shot against anybody, especially with Sharp really coming on his own. Just God, he's such a game changer. So Buffalo shoots 35%, so they could get hot. That's something we got to worry about. They're only 100 to 95 in assist to turnovers, and we know, another thing we like to do is play some defense. So it could be a good matchup. I think if we can get Anderson or Hamilton back, I think we got a good shot against Buffalo.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll be playing center next week. It'll be another game. So we'll be able to preview the Louisville game next week before we play it. So we'll talk more about that next week.
That's shaping up to be, just while we have it, a hell of a Saturday for Western fans.
Yeah, it is.
You got
Yeah.
the Boca Raton Bowl at 10 a.m. Central Time, and then at 1:30 you got the U of L game. And I know there's several people, like me included, that having went to San Antonio last week, I probably wasn't going to go to the bowl game, but people who bought U of L tickets that or would have gone to the bowl game or vice versa, and it's just it's gonna be just back-to-back intensity. I think if we win one, I'll be happy. So
yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm a football fan, so I want them to win the bowl game. But definitely beating Louisville at Diddle would be pretty sweet too.
Yeah.
That would be definitely really sweet if we could sweep both. I mean, that would be
if we sweep both, it's probably one of the best days we've ever had.
Yes. Let me see if this game is well. If it's televised, it's not showing up on ESPN.
Which one is it? Ole Miss?
Louisville.
CBS Sportsnet.
Okay. So definitely check out that.
The Ole Miss game's on SEC Network, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll talk more Lady Tops next week. We'll get into that. And volleyball lost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, volleyball lost. They beat South Carolina, right?
They swept them, and
they swept them. And,
three straight years we made the second round, and then I just think that we ran into a better team, and the host in Georgia Tech, and it's kind of a tough thing, and just shows that it's tough, man. It's we have a damn good program, but we're still just that there's that other mountain to climb. It will be interesting if I think Hudson has proved that he can top any kind of ceiling, but I think the second round Sweet 16 ceiling, now that the program's at, that's the hardest mountain to climb next. So
yeah, that'll be it. And like I said, I've been saying for a while, we need to get a facility for volleyball, and we need to put a statue of Travis Hudson outside. Completely believe that, because he has done so much with that girls team, with that volleyball team. I mean, phenomenal.
Yeah, with just 2 losses all season, is that they lost to Ole Miss and then Georgia Tech?
I think that's right. Yeah, and I mean that's 2. I mean, 1 regular season and then 1 in the big dance, basically, for volleyball. So, it is what it is.
I mean, still a great season. They really are the flagship program on the Hill of any of those. And I think they, you look down their roster. Hold on, let me look that up while we're still talking about it. Another underrated thing is they played 2 seasons in 1 calendar year with the COVID. They played a spring season and a fall season. They could just have been just freaking emotionally exhausted for playing that much volleyball in a year when they're usually ramping up, once a year. So I know let's see, go down the list. They return Paige Briggs, who's all conference. Nadia Judene's gone. Let's see. Lauren Matthews, their senior hitter's gone. And she might have another year with COVID, but I think they lose. Yeah, they lose quite a few players off this team. So next year might be a reload year, which in Conference USA will probably be fine. But it might be a while before we have a team as good as this one was. So kudos to Travis Hudson. What a hell of a run we've been on lately.
Yeah, I mean, tip my hat to you, sir. But definitely, December 18th is the football bowl game. We've got, and of course, like Ross said, it's 11 a.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Central. Boca Raton Bowl. So check that out. I think, what do we say, CBS or ESPN Plus, one of those two.
Oh, Boca Raton's on ESPN.
Okay, yeah. We'll be talking about that again next week. We'll try and preview that a little bit more. Ross and I did a little bit here, but we'll do a little refresher next week. And then, of course, like we were talking about, you got to check out basketball. We've got a few games coming up, Buffalo, Ole Miss, and then Center College. And then we'll talk Louisville game next week. And they're going to be on December 18th as well. So I guess just don't plan anything on December 18th. And
At least until that night.
yeah, don't plan anything. And as always, guys, go Tops.
Go Tops.